When you think of melee builds, you normally think of a Titan, but with this new exotic class item I got alongside Prismatic, this is honestly one of the craziest melee builds I have ever played. You're going to be able to one-hit almost every single enemy in the game on its own, or even a large group of them. Even in things like GMs in the right circumstances, your melee can even one-shot lower tier enemies. With it, you're going to have the likes of Devour, Amplified, Frost Armor, and of course, unlimited melee energy. This build is a ton of fun, and the gameplay loop that wraps it all together is something I would highly recommend every Warlock give a chance. And before we jump into it again, I want to say thank you all so much for 50,000 subscribers. The support that you all have been showing recently has just been insane. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for each and every single one of you, and if you are new here and enjoying the content, definitely consider subscribing. All of the support goes a long way and it is truly appreciated. All right, starting off, let's take a look at the new exotic class item, and this is going to roll with Spirit of Necrotic and Spirit of Syntheseps. With Spirit of Syntheseps, when you're surrounded by enemies, you're going to get a 165% increase to your melee damage. This melee damage is going to apply to everything that is doing melee in this build, and then with Spirit of Necrotic, every single time you deal melee damage, you will cause a poison damage over time that can spread once that poison enemy dies to help with ad clear. Now, Spirit of Necrotic is interesting on the class item because it's not going to tick the damage up like the normal necrotic will, and the poison that comes from it does not count as melee damage, so the necrotic poison will not be getting the Syntheseps buff. However, on the exotic Warlock class items, there really isn't anything else that will just increase your damage when doing a melee other than this, but if you instead want to take something like Spirit of the Assassin so you can go invisible every melee kill, that is totally doable as well. Personally, I just like the extra damage that comes from Spirit of Necrotic and the extra ad clear it adds when we get into some of our aspects. So what we're going to do with this is actually come over to our Prismatic subclass, and we're going to be running Arcane Needle. We're only running this because it gives 3 melee charges, and we're also going to be running Lightning Surge. So while sliding, activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you rematerialize. So since we are running Arcane Needle, we have 3 charges of Arcane Surge, and that Arcane Surge will also get the buffs of Syntheseps and Necrotic. The cool part about this is that since you're sliding into enemies all the time with Arcane Surge, Syntheseps is pretty much always going to be procced, and if you don't get a kill, you will also jolt enemies alongside applying the Necrotic effect, and the Necrotic damage over time will have the ability to proc that jolt, so it's even more ad clear if you don't secure a one-shot kill. 9 times out of 10, you are going to one-shot most things in the game with this melee, but this is a nice little benefit if you are playing in harder content, just so you can definitely be sure to secure the kill, even if the base melee doesn't get the kill. Now, the way we're going to be getting our melee energy back is going to be with things like Monte Carlo. When you're dealing damage to Monte Carlo, every single bit of damage you do will grant you 2% melee energy back, and then when you get a kill with the weapon, you have a 25% chance to refill one of your melee charges. This also does have the benefit of providing a Markov chain stack every single time you get a kill, which can stack up to ×5. This will provide a damage buff, but the main point of this is to actually go along with a catalyst, so when you're at ×5 Markov chain, you can actually activate the bayonet on the weapon. This bayonet does a ton of melee damage. It can also play into your Syntheseps and Necrotics, and every single time you deal melee damage with this bayonet, not only do you refill the ×5 Markov chain to use it again, but you will also get around 50% of one of your melee charges back. Monte Carlo is extremely good with this build because you can run in, act clear a lot with your Arcane Surge. If there's a tankier target, you can then proc the bayonet to insta-kill that with the bayonet, and then you can just Arcane Surge to a next group of enemies, and it becomes this fun chain or gameplay loop that you can get down, and once you have it, it just absolutely destroys everything in the game. Now, the final ways we're going to be buffing our melee damage is with things like Shield Crush. So if we have Wolf Mail, Frost Armor, or an Overshield, our melee is going to recharge faster and have 25% more damage. This also can affect our grenades, which is nice. We have Amplified or Radiant. The exact same thing happens, just except for your grenade. Then we're also going to be running Transference. While we're Transcendent, we're going to get 10% increased grenade and melee damage, and we can also have the ability to refund a lot of our Transcendence energy if we are getting weapon kills while Transcendence is active. We will be using Monte Carlo a lot to get our melee energy back, so that second part is nice, but the main thing is you're going to be getting even more melee damage with both of these combined together, and it just makes it easier to one-shot everything in the game. Now, that's pretty much it for the melee side of things. Let's take a further look into the subclass so we can figure out how we're going to round the build out. First off, we're going to be taking Feed the Void. So defeating a target with any ability to activate Devour. Your Devour effects are improved, restoring additional health and grenade energy. Feed the Void is honestly one of the strongest aspects on the Prismatic Warlock. Every single time you get a Lightning Surge kill, you are going to heal to full, but on top of that, since you are proccing Devour, you're getting grenade energy, and we already talked a lot on how we're getting our melee energy back, but this is solely how you're going to be getting a lot of your grenade energy back. So this aspect alone is providing you with 2 things: the ability to become unkillable while also spamming even more grenades. Now, for your grenade with this build, we're going to be running the Cold Snap Grenade. Now, the reason we're running this is simply because we can freeze targets. If you don't know the way this works, when you freeze a target, you actually do 120% bonus melee damage to that frozen target. This is great to have because you can freeze an entire group of enemies, then lightning surge into those frozen enemies, and you're of course going to just kill all of them. From the melee damage to the shatter damage, they're just not going to be able to live. This is a great tool if you are coming against a tankier target and you know you need to do some extra melee damage to kill them. You're always going to have this in your back pocket, because with Devour, every single time you get a kill, you're refunding some of this grenade energy back. And then for the rest of your abilities, I like to run Phoenix style. If I'm ever in a sticky situation, I can just dive to the ground, apply Cure to myself. If you want to take a Rift, you can, but honestly, I just like taking the Phoenix style because it has a lower cooldown. And then for your super, I like to run a Winter's Wrath with this, but you can also run Nova Bomb or Needle Storm. The main reason you want to run this is just so you can proc Shield Crush, and we're going to be procking Shield Crush with our Fragment Facet of Purpose. So picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or an Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. Now the reason I do like to run Winter's Wrath, because picking up an orb will actually grant you around 9 or 10 seconds of Frost Armor, whereas things like Woven Mail is only 5 seconds and Overshield is only 5 seconds, and with the Overshield you can get it shot off of you, so you don't have it up as often. So with Winter's Wrath, you have Frost Armor pretty much all the time. You're always proccing Shield Crush. Now Winter's Wrath honestly is not the greatest super in the game, especially for boss damage, but it's decent for ad clear. So if you want to take Needle Storm, you can. Just know you're not going to have as much uptime on Shield Crush that you would with something like Winter's Wrath. And then for the rest of your fragments, we're going to be running Facet of Protection, so while starting back cabinets, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, this effect is increased. This is great to have. You're just going to be more tanky now. This is running almost every single build, and since you're slotting in with Lightning Surge all the time, you're just pretty much going to always have this proc. Next up, it's going to be Facet of Grace. So defeating targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus Transcendence energy. Defeating targets with your super grants you and nearby allies bonus Transcendence energy. This is great because you're going to be using Monte Carlo a lot with this build. Monte Carlo is kinetic, so you will be getting that bonus Transcendence energy, and you want to be Transcendence because you will get the damage bonus to your melee with things like Transference from your artifact, and also while you're Transcendence, your ability regen is just going to be through the roof, so you can spam even more melees. Now your next fragment is going to be Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeated targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeated targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. This is nice because now every single time you get a kill with Arcane Surge, you're just granting yourself some ability energy back, because you're always going to be rapidly killing enemies with this. In all honesty, if you want to take something else, maybe something like Facet of Awakening, you can with this build, just so you can make some Onyx Traces, but it's up to you. I just prefer Balance a little bit from my playtest, but these two can definitely be swapped out, or even if you want to take something like Dawn to make yourself Radiant, you can totally do that. But next up is going to be Facet of Courage. So your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. This is great because we are going to have the ability to freeze enemies with that grenade. As we went over, you will get that increased melee damage on its own, but this is just another little benefit to that. So you freeze the enemy, and now your Arcane Surge will do even more damage. With your Transcendence grenade, this also has the ability to apply slow, so if you're in your Transcendence, you still will be getting this benefit as well, which is great. And there's pretty much just no downside to this fragment. It's just increased damage pretty much all the time. And then for the final fragment, we already went over, so you can get your Frost Armor when you pick up your orbs. Now the other artifact perks about this build is going to be things like Radiant Orbs. When you pick an orb up, you become Radiant. You're always going to be making orbs to this build, so you're just always going to be Radiant. This again can help proc things like Shield Crush, then also Galvanic Armor, so when you're amplified, you will get even more damage resist. This is great because you're always going to be amplified with your Lightning Surge. Again, this can also help proc things like Shield Crush. And then the final one is just Elemental Siphon, so rapid kinetic weapon final blows will spawn an element to pick up based on your super. Since you are running Winter's Wrath, you will spawn a Stasis Shard from time to time, and the Stasis Shard will actually refill your melee energy, so you're kind of doubling down on the fact that Monte Carlo on its own can refill your melee, and it can spawn things to also refill your melee, so that's pretty cool. And then for the stats, I would definitely just go with 100 Resilience for even more damage reduction, because you want to be as tanky as possible with this build. 100 Strength, obviously, so you can spam your melee a lot more often, and then if you can get to 100 Discipline, this is also going to be great, just so you can spam your Cold Snap Grenade to freeze enemies a lot more often as well, to increase that melee damage. And overall, you're going to be able to spam your abilities like crazy with this. And I'm finally jumping into the armor mods. This is what I'm running if you like to copy it down, but starting off with the helmet, I'm going to be running a Kinetic Siphon so I can make orbs with my Monte Carlo. Orbs are going to be very strong with this build, providing you with Radiant, providing you with Armor Charge, providing you with Woven Mail. You're going to need a lot of them. Next up is going to be hands-on, so whenever we kill enemies with our melee, we get bonus super energy. This is just great to have, so we can use a super a little bit more often. Then heavy ammo finder, so we can make some more heavy. Since we are running Monte Carlo, that is an exotic primary, this will proc a lot more often, so just more heavy to go around. The next up for our arms, I do like running kinetic loader just so I can reload my Monte Carlo a little bit faster. I am going to be running double heavy-handed so I can make orbs whenever I get a melee kill. If you want to run 3 heavy-handed, you absolutely can, because now every single time you get a lightning surge kill, you will make an orb, With 2, it's going to be a 5-second cooldown, which is honestly totally doable. I personally use the Monte Carlo a lot with this, so I just like having this kinetic loader there. But if you could deal with the normal reload speed, I would highly recommend running triple heavy-handed, so you could just make orbs every single time you get a melee kill. And then for your chest piece, always run resistant mods. Just be sure to swap these out for whatever content you're going into. And then for your boots, I like to run an invigoration, an orbs of restoration, and an absolution. So all these are going to be based on picking orbs up. Obviously, we've already went over how picking up orbs up are going to be very strong in this build. With invigoration, you're getting melee energy. With restoration, you're getting energy to your lowest ability, which most of the time is going to be your melee energy. And then with absolution, you're getting ability energy for everything. So again, even more melee energy right here. And these paired together will actually net you more melee energy than if you just were to run 3 invigorations. On top of that, you also get the benefits of refilling some of your other abilities as well. And then finally, for my class item, I do like running 1-2 finishers. So whenever I get a finisher, I can get some melee energy back. This is based on your armor charge. So if you have around 3 stacks, which you pretty much always will, because this is the only thing using your armor charge, you're going to get around 70% of a melee charge back, which is just great for more melee spamming. The next up is powerful attraction, so I can automatically collect orbs whenever I use my class ability. Again, your class ability is kind of used for sticky situations. This is also one of those if you need to pick orbs up to proc some of your other mods. And then proximity ward, so whenever I go for a finisher, I will get a powerful overshield. This is great for survivability because you're going to be in the fight all the time with this build. Also, you're going to be getting melee energy back when you go for finishers, so this is going to be great to have. And with all that combined together, this is a very brawly warlock build. You want to be in the fight, constantly meleeing everything, and if you are doing that, you're going to get rewarded very well and be pretty much unkillable with things like devour and fast start protection. And now for the most important part of the build, this is the transmog I'm running. I took advantage of the new episode's chest piece because it has a giant sword on it. I also took advantage of the raid helmet because it has like a point on it and it's like, I don't know, you can stab somebody with that. I had the class item ornament on and I took advantage of one of the new shaders. I think it actually looks pretty cool, especially with the animated effect on it. And if you want to make your warlock look like this, definitely be sure to copy it down. But all right, that is going to do it all for me. Let me know what you all think about this build in the comments below. Like I said in the beginning, I know melee is normally meant for titans or even hunters now at this point, but the warlock is definitely giving its all when they want to toss their hand into it, and it can definitely compete. This is honestly some of the most fun I've had on my warlock in a while, and it's something I would highly recommend all of you try out. Anyway, so that's going to do it all for me. I wish you all the best of luck in putting this build together for yourself. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Peace.